as many of you probably already know, I have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Pretty much ever since day one with LOB and the Yugi and Kaiba starter decks, and I've seen a lot of different mechanics added into Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years, and I feel like I'm pretty open to new mechanics, maybe more so than many older school players. Usually I don't mind that much. However, recently I've spent a lot of time thinking about Link 1 monsters and the challenges that they bring to Yu-Gi-Oh! With Synchros and Xyz monsters, the vast majority of them have to be summoned with at least 2 monsters, sometimes even more. There are exceptions, of course. We saw cards like Gaia Charger and Downward Magician, which could be summoned on top of an already existing Xyz monster, but in that case you still had to invest multiple cards to make that first Xyz monster, so I don't know if those really count. Probably the closest thing we saw to Link 1 monsters before Link summoning would have been the Zodiac cards back in 2017. These Xyz monsters can not only be summoned with their regular material, but you can also summon them on top of a Zodiac monster. So not only can you summon them on top of Zodiac Xyz monsters like with Gaia Charger and Downward Magician, but also you can summon them on a Zodiac main deck monster too. So those were like 1 card Xyz summons, and I feel like those cards really showed us how powerful it was when you're able to summon an extra deck monster off of only 1 monster. So what's the problem with Link 1 monsters? Well, I feel like there are 2 major issues that need to be talked about. First, Link 1 monsters oftentimes feel very similar from deck to deck. They're either doing the same thing if they're generic, or if they're archetype support, oftentimes they do very similar things between different themes. How many Link 1 monsters are there that search an archetype spell on summon? I mean, sure, these cards usually have a few differences, but oftentimes they can start to feel pretty similar. And from a design standpoint, that's not very interesting. And from a player's perspective, that's not very fun. The second issue is that oftentimes Link 1 monsters are low investment, high reward cards. Now that's not inherently a problem, and not every single Link 1 monster is broken just by being a Link 1 monster, but it can be pretty frustrating to play against a deck when they have many powerful Link 1s, because it feels like they're not really losing any card advantage when they summon their best monsters. Think about it. When you summon a big Synchro or a big Xyz monster, you are investing multiple cards. But with Link 1 monsters, that's not really the case. This especially can be an issue when you want to not only stop the Link 1 monster, but you also want to stop the monster used to summon it. That means you might have to waste 2 negations just to deal with 1 normal summon, and that can be a pretty difficult situation, especially when a deck has a lot of cards like that. Personally, I feel like there are 3 main categories of popular Link 1 monsters that are being played. You have the cards that are only played because they can put a monster in the graveyard, but their on-field effects aren't that good. You have the starter Link 1 monsters that immediately get you value when they are summoned, and you have the Link 1 monsters that take a bit more setup but have really powerful effects when they work. So what type of cards are in that first category? The biggest 2 are going to be Link Kribo and Salamangreat Almirage. You also have the Moon Maiden, a more recent addition to these types of cards, and these ones are great for putting monsters in the graveyard to use their graveyard effects. The 1 card Helki Firebacks combos of Glow Up Bob or Plague Spider Zombie or Jet Synchron don't really work without these cards. While people probably will never say that these cards are broken, I do want to say that from a design standpoint, they do pose the challenge that anytime Konami prints a normal summonable monster with less than 1000 attack or any level 1 monster, they have to keep these 2 cards in mind. And that does make it pretty difficult to design cards with powerful graveyard effects that are either level 1 monsters or 1000 attack or less monsters that can be normal summoned. The second category of popular Link 1 monsters is all about Link 1s that immediately get you value. These are oftentimes cards that you summon at the very beginning of your combo to make your deck work. Cards like Salamangreat Baylynx and Edagnister Dark Infant and Striker Dragon are all examples of this type of Link 1 monster, but there are plenty of others that we could talk about as well. And these cards are really interesting because they're sort of dual purpose Link 1s. Not only do they search a card immediately, but also they might put a monster in the graveyard that has a graveyard effect. The third category is Link 1s that do require some other type of setup, but their effects are a lot more powerful than the other cards we've talked about in today's video. Cards like Guardragon LP and Pisty, or the Crusadia Link 1, or Sky Striker Kagari, these cards don't immediately get you value if they are the first card you are summoning, but with a tiny bit of setup, these cards can be game-winning monsters. Kagari is fantastic if you have at least one Sky Striker spell in your graveyard. The Crusadia Link 1 is great if you have any extender, and obviously Guardragon LP and Pisty are great monsters as long as you have the right setup and have two Link monsters pointing to the same zone. Now I will mention that the two Link 1s that are currently banned don't really fall into any of these categories. Link Cross and Nightmare Mermaid are very similar to cards like Gaia Charger or Downward Magician. They were usually summoned using a monster that you used multiple monsters to bring out. So those cards aren't really in the same category as many of the Link 1s we've talked about so far, because those ones likely required you to invest multiple cards. Now with Nightmare Mermaid, people did summon it off of one Ibly, and in some decks people even played 3 copies of Ibly to try and do that, but in the vast majority of situations, people didn't really want to summon the mermaid that way. They would most likely summon Nightmare Phoenix or Cerberus first, and then use one of those cards for the Nightmare Mermaid, which means that they still had to invest multiple monsters to bring out the first Nightmare before using that monster to summon the mermaid. So how do these cards impact gameplay? Well, for starters, they make a lot of decks very consistent. You know that you don't need multiple monsters to start your combos. You only need that one monster to get to that crucial Link 1 card. They can also affect the metagame when one deck plays too many of these cards. I think back to Crusadia Thunder Dragons back in 2019. Those could play the Crusadia Link 1 and Guardragon Pisty and LP, and nowadays we see basically the same issue with Dragon Link, which can play Striker Dragon as well as Guardragon LP and Pisty. Combo decks absolutely should be around in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not saying they shouldn't. However, when a combo deck has a lot of these easy to summon high impact Link 1 monsters, it can create a problem where you don't have enough interruptions for all of their starters and all of their extenders. I think it's a lot better when you put these powerful effects on Link 2 monsters or Link 3 monsters, cards that take multiple monsters to bring out. Now Link 1 monsters also are not inherently broken. A lot of the cards I mentioned in today's video are perfectly fine, and they don't need to be hit on the ban list. But some of them are too powerful, and part of the reason they're so powerful is because they only take one monster to summon. So I hope that in the future, as Konami prints more and more Link 1 monsters, which I'm sure they'll do, they at least consider some of the things that I've talked about in today's video. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's discussion. I'll see you later. Goodbye.